Hola, ¿qué tal, gente? Hoy estoy de nuevo para jugar el Stanley Parable. En el capítulo anterior estuve rompiéndole muchísimo las pelotas a la persona que relata, sin hacerle caso a nada. Y hoy siento que le puedo hacer caso en algo. Siento que puedo llegar a obedecer. Y ahora que lo noto, en esta parte del principio está solo esta computadora prendida. La apagué. ¿Eso habrá hecho algo? ¿Habrá accionado algo? No, no creo. A ver. No, creo que no hay diferencia. Bueno, vamos a seguir. Siento que puedo llegar a hacerle caso en todo lo que me diga, pero no sé. Todavía lo dudo un poco. Bueno. Todo igual hasta ahora. Y acá. Bueno, vamos a la de izquierda. Izquierda. Esta puerta nada. Esta tampoco, nada, nada. Bueno, acá. Acá tampoco hay nadie.
Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an aunt. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
¿Hacerle caso o no? Bueno, por ahora sí, ya fue. Por ahora sigo haciéndole caso. A ver qué onda. A ver. ¿Acá se puede entrar? ¿Baño o no? Bueno, acá parece el lugar del jefe. Acá tampoco. Y esta es la oficina. Tampoco hay nadie.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret
dice 2845.
2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
No, ¿cómo iba a saberlo? A ver, ¿será 2845?
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
¿Acá habrá algún secreto o algo? No creo. ¿Esto? No, no es nada. Bueno, vamos a bajar por el ascensor. Vamos. Se me está haciendo muy difícil hacerle caso a todo lo que me dice. Es como que en algún momento me voy a tentar y voy a hacer todo lo que hice en el capítulo anterior, pero no, realmente no quiero, Realmente no quiero. Ay, qué difícil. A ver.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him?
Porque es idiota, es un retrasado mental que lo único que hace es apretar teclas todo el día. O sea, si hace eso todo el tiempo, tiene que tener algún fallo mental o algo, no se puede.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Ay, acá dice escapar. Acá dice escapar. No, ya está, escapo. Aunque no es escapar seguramente.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Ay, tengo miedo.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
No, vamos a no hacerle caso en esto.
Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Ay, Dios, el pasillo infernal del infierno. ¿Esto qué es? Ah, no, es todo pared. ¿Morí? ¿Qué pasa ahora? ¡Ay, no! ¿Dónde caigo? ¿Qué es esto? Tengo miedo, no morir.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped
No, me
forever in his
eso.
narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned, willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
No. ¿Me puedo agachar? Sí. ¡Ay, me puedo agachar! ¿Qué pasó?
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal
Me
jaws.
salvé.
In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body,
¿Por qué la otra
killing
persona
him
ahora?
instantly.
No. Escapé de nuevo. ¿Qué dice? Stanley Parable.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever.
No.
What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Otra narradora.
When
¿Qué
every
carajo?
path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making
Carajo.
life the same.
Natural
Do you see
paintings.
now? Do you see that
Stanley
Stanley
computer.
was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Office layout. ¿Qué? Es como un museo de la oficina, no entiendo. A ver, para acá hay un layout, capaz revela algún secreto o algo. A ver, acá es donde empiezo. Acá es donde sigo todo. No, es corredor. The pacing of the... acá es cuando tomo la puerta de la derecha o de la izquierda. Las dos puertas. Wow. Qué bizarro, puerta 1, 2 y 3. The Office. ¿Puedo abrir una de estas? No, no creo. Button sounds. Stanley Parable Credits. Qué flashero. ¿Y esto? Office Computer tenía en solitario. Esta no tiene nada. Employee Database. Filling Cabinets. Qué bizarro todo esto. Acá tengo dos caminos. A ver acá qué hay. Primero, me parece que... The Office. Maintenance Room. ¿Qué dicen? An elevation of the maintenance. Es como todo el desarrollo que hubo del juego. What? The point of Stanley Parable HD Remix is to win, to lose. Screenshot HD Remix. Ah, muy loco todo esto. Warzone. Temprano en el desarrollo diseñamos una versión donde Stanley, donde el mundo de Stanley terminaba en un campo de batalla peleando a aliens. El juego de acción podría haberse convertido... no, lo descartaron. Carajo, te cuenta todo, buenísimo. A ver qué más. ¿Qué dice acá? How is the games? How is the game going? I hope it's as good or better than from a cool man. Email del narrador. Después del segundo trailer, mandamos a una persona que haga emails. Ah, muy bueno esto. Me encantó esta especie de final o lo que sea. El lounge, oficina, teléfono. El timer del apartamento. Esto no sé qué es. Claro, porque hay todas partes que yo no jugué en el otro video. Meeting room. ¿Y esto? Maintenance layout. A ver, la puerta que obedezco me manda el staircase. Pero justo atrás mío está el maintenance. Al final confuso. En el lounge hay una ventilación. No, tengo que ver todo esto porque parece que... Ah, no, son todos los que... Estos los que descartaron, eso ya entendí. No, eso no va a estar, ya entendí. Acá. Sending levers. Sending. ¿Qué es el sending? Sending model. This screenshot speaks an early version of the ending known as descending. Claro, lo sacaron, lo pusieron en otra parte del juego. Escape menu. Wow, qué raro todo esto. Bueno, voy al principio a ver qué había acá. Estuve viendo más cosas y está muy interesante, pero no quiero mostrar todo, la verdad, porque me da embole, la verdad, si muestro todo. A ver acá. Acá dice Employee Lounge, Underground. Ah, en la parte del fondo. ¿Y esto? Narration Outtakes. ¿Qué van? ¿Carajo? Ah, la voz del narrador.
They're throwing a surprise party for him for all his button pushing.
Ahí se escucha. Parece un fantasma el chabón. Bueno, acá parece que está el salida. Esta especie de museo.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Lo apagó y sí, no queda otra, parece. Uy, rompí el juego.
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen.
Carajo. Qué juego flashero.
But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail.
What?
Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and be your only true choice.
Carajo.
Do choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time.
Está diciendo que saque el juego antes de que muera. Y no me salvé agachándome. Esa no. Ahora qué pasa. Pesa de nuevo. Dale, juego, decime algo. Se quedó ahí todo trabado. ¿Qué pasó? No puedo hacer nada. Me tira esta opción de empezarlo de nuevo. No, déjate de joder. Otra vez.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
¿Qué me queda hacer?
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
No sé qué más puedo hacer. Podría ir abajo en la escalera. Ya sé qué hacer. Acá voy a ir a la izquierda, voy a hacerle caso. Y después acá
Yet there was not a single person here either.
voy a ir abajo en la
Feeling a
escalera.
wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
A ver. ¿Qué es esto? Un
But
estacionamiento.
Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during hours. He might be fired for that.
No entiendo esto.
And
1,
in such a
2,
competitive
B,
economy,
4.
why had he
What?
taken that risk? All
Bueno, ahora
because he
seguimos.
believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy.
Exit.
And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he
Bueno,
thought
otra
to
vez
himself,
esto.
maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out
Bueno,
of existence
otra
in
vez
a
este
single
auto.
moment for no reason at all.
Dios, basta.
Any logical
Dejen de
sense.
repetirse
And as
cosas.
Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating?
Sí, me está
No,
pasando todo
Stanley said to
eso.
himself, this
Ayúdame.
is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the word for it.
Basta.
I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream.
¿Cuándo para esto?
Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation.
Bueno,
His
ya me está
coworkers
haciendo
weren't
agarrar
actually
cortocircuito
gone.
este juego.
He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid.
No termina
So,
más.
he
No sé qué
imagined
hacer.
himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
¿Qué usa este auto o algo?
Then
Estoy
he
volando.
imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head.
Casi volando.
One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream.
¿Va a ser toda así esta versión? No entiendo por
Was
qué.
Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life.
No para.
Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream.
¿Y ahora qué hago?
So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one.
Por fin termina.
Let me wake up, he thought to himself.
¿Y ahora?
I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job.
No me digas que...
Let me continue pushing
Dios.
the buttons. Please.
Ahora vuelve al
It's all
principio.
I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal.
No es normal.
Everything will be fine.
Nada de esto es normal.
I am okay.
Está drogado el chabón. ¿Y ahora? Sigo acá. No.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
¿Y ahora? No me digas que empieza de nuevo.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
¿Qué?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work.
Stanley.
But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew.
Y bueno.
Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Nada más eso. Pero, ¿por qué en primer lugar? No, ya está, yo no entiendo nada de este juego, ya me cansó. No, listo, chao. Acá termino con esto. Voy a jugar otra cosa. Vayan todos a la mierda.